This is the story of how Br'er Rabbit outsmarted the frogs, a story I first heard from Jackie Torrance, an amazing storyteller, and she said that her grandmother told her this story. Br'er Rabbit, as you know, was an excellent fisherman, and he would go down to the river and throw in his line, and within about 10 minutes, he would have 15 fish all lined up next to him on the riverbank. Now, Br'er Rabbit had a friend named Br'er Coon, Brother Coon, but they called him Br'er Coon for short. And Br'er Coon didn't like fish. He liked frogs. And he would go to the river with his frog sack and catch all the frogs he could and throw them in the frog sack and take them home. And that's what he and his wife would eat for dinner. And his wife would be so happy every time he brought a big load of frogs and set them on the porch. "Ooh," she said, "you brought home a bunch of frogs. We're going to have a good supper tonight." Well, the frogs were getting tired of being caught, and so they held a big frog meeting, and they decided that they needed someone with really good eyes so that they could see when Br'er Coon was coming. And they needed a frog that had great hearing so that he could hear when Br'er Coon was coming. And someone with a big loud voice so he could cry out a warning and warn all the other frogs. And the only frog that met all those qualifications was the bullfrog. So Br'er Coon, when he went to the river, he got within about a half mile or so, and then the bullfrog, he saw Br'er Coon coming and heard him, and he cried out his warning, "Here he comes! Here he comes! Here he comes!" And the little frogs would echo him, and they'd say, "Here he comes! Here he comes! Here he comes!" And they'd all jump into the water, and Br'er Coon couldn't swim, so he couldn't catch any of them. Well, this went on for a few days, and pretty soon their frog supply at home was growing mighty small, and Mrs. Coon was getting hungry. And she got on his case and said, "What's the matter with you? Why can't you catch any more frogs?" And Br'er Coon explained, "Every time I go down there, they just cry out, 'Here he comes,' and I can't catch him." Well, Mrs. Coon took a broom handle and hit him on the side of the head. Said, "We're going to get hungry. We're going to starve to death. You have to go get those frogs." And Br'er Coon said, "But I've tried and I can't." And she said, "You want me to hit you on the other side of the head too?" And he didn't, so he went down to the river. He was walking, and he ran into Br'er Rabbit, who had a big line of a bunch of fish that he had just caught. And Br'er Rabbit looked at Br'er Coon, and he said, "What's the matter with you, Br'er Coon? You look right down in the mouth." And Br'er Coon said, "Oh, I'm getting awfully hungry, and my wife is too. Every time I go to the river, I can't catch any frogs because that bullfrog just cries out his warning, and they all jump in the river. I can't catch them." And Br'er Rabbit said, "Sounds like you need a plan." And Br'er Coon said, What plan?" And Br'er Rabbit says, "Well, I'm the best planner that ever planned. I'm just going to have to sit here and think you up a plan." And so he sat on the road, and he twitched his ears one way, and he twitched his ears the other way, and he stomped his foot on the ground, and he thought, and he thought. And pretty soon he sat up straight, and he said, "I've thought you up a plan." And Br'er Coon said, "Well, what is it?" And Br'er Rabbit said, "Here's what I want you to do. I want you to go down to the river, and when you get to the bank of the river, I want you to fall down dead. And Br'er Coon said, "Oh, but I don't want to die." And Br'er Rabbit said, No, you're not going to die. You're just going to play dead. And Br'er Coon said, "Oh, that's better. And then what do I do?" And then Br'er Rabbit said, "Well, you don't do nothing. You just stay there and you don't move until I tells you to move." And Br'er Coon said, "Well, that sounds like a plan to me." And so he walked down to the river, and when he got within about a half mile of the river, the bullfrog cried out his warning, "Here he comes! Here he comes! Here he comes!" And the little frogs echoed, "Here he comes! Here he comes! Here he comes!" And they all jumped in the water. And Br'er Coon stood there on the riverbank, and he pretended to be a little dizzy, like he was about to faint. And then he keeled over and he kicked his leg about 9 times. And then he lay still and he pretended to be dead. Well, as the sun came out from over the trees and shone on his face, he got awfully hot. And he sure wanted to move, but he didn't. He listened to Br'er Rabbit and he just lay there and he played dead. And then the flies came out, and they crawled all over his face and across his eyes and his ears and up his nose, and Br'er Coon sure wanted to move, but he didn't. He still lay there and he played dead. Well, by late afternoon, it started to cool off a little bit, and Br'er Rabbit made his way to the riverbank, and he came upon Br'er Coon, and then he pretended to cry. Oh, and the bullfrog, he crawled up onto the riverbank and he said, "What's the matter with you? What's the matter with you? What's the matter with you?" And the little frogs echoed, "What's the matter with you? What's the matter with you? What's the matter with you?" And Br'er Rabbit said, "Well, you see my friend here, Br'er Coon, he fell dead. He done fell dead. Oh." And the bullfrog said, "Well, that's good." And the little frog said, "Well, that's real good." And Br'er Coon said, "Long time ago, my friend here, he said if he died, when he passed away, he wanted to be buried right here by the riverbank. And so I guess I'm going to have to dig him a grave." And the bullfrog looked up at him and he said, "Let us dig it. Let us dig it. Let us dig it." And the little frogs echoed him and said, "Let us dig it. Let us dig it. Let us dig it." And Br'er Rabbit said, "Well, seeing as how I'm all torn up with grief and all, I suppose I'll let you dig it. But I'm going to stand here and tell you how deep to dig that grave." And so the frogs all got out their little frog shovels and they started to dig. And they dug, and they dug, and they dug right under Br'er Coon. And as they dug, the hole got deeper, and Br'er Coon settled down into the grave that the frogs were digging. And dirt was flying this way and that way and all over. And pretty soon that grave was 7 feet deep. And the frogs were getting tired. They thought it was enough. And the bullfrog looked up and he said, "Is it deep enough? Is it deep enough? Is it deep enough?" And the little frogs echoed, "Is it deep enough? Is it deep enough? Is it deep enough?" And Br'er Rabbit looked down into the grave and he said, "Well, can you jump out?" And the bullfrog looked up and he said, "Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Yes, we can." And the little frogs echoed and said, "Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Yes, we can." And Br'er Rabbit said, "Well, it ain't deep enough. Dig it deeper." And so the frogs continued to dig. And they dug, and they dug, and they dug. Well, pretty soon that grave was 12 feet deep, and the frogs were getting mighty tired. And so the bullfrog looked up and he said, "Is it deep enough? Is it deep enough? Is it deep enough?" And the little frog said, "Is it deep enough? Is it deep enough? Is it deep enough?" Br'er Rabbit looked into the grave and he said, "Well, can you jump out?" And the bullfrog looked up and he said, "Believe we can. Believe we can. Believe we can." And the little frogs echoed, "Believe we can. Believe we can. Believe we can." And Br'er Rabbit said, "Well, it ain't deep enough. And keep digging." And so the frogs continued to dig. And they dug. And they dug. And they dug until that grave was about 15 feet deep, with Br'er Coon sitting at the bottom of it. Every bit of sand that they were flinging up wasn't even getting out of the grave anymore. It was just falling back on their heads. And the bullfrog looked up and he said, "Is it deep enough? Is it deep enough? Is it deep enough?" And the little frogs echoed, "Is it deep enough? Is it deep enough? Is it deep enough?" And Br'er Rabbit looked into the grave and he said, "Well, can you jump out?" And the bullfrog looked up and he said, "No, we can't. No, we can't. No, we can't." And the little frog said, "No, we can't. No, we can't. No, we can't." And Br'er Rabbit looked into the grave and he said, "Get up there, Br'er Coon, and grab your groceries." And he grabbed all the frogs he could, threw them in his toad sack, his frog sack, and he had enough groceries for that year and the next year to boot. And that's the end of that.